A little while back, I made a video on whether or not Prime Invincible could 1v1 the Justice League, and if you haven't already watched it, I highly encourage you to go check that out, but I did promise that if the video was well received, well, we'll do a part 2 discussing Mark's chances against the Avengers in Marvel Comics. Thank you for clicking on the video, and if you like what you see, then please check out the other stuff I have on the channel, and subscribe for more discussions of versus battles in the future. Let's go ahead and lay out the rules for this matchup. So for the rules, we're using the exact same rules from the Justice League video, which I think are pretty much fair and straightforward to understand. So here they are as follows. Rule number 1, as we previously mentioned, Emperor Mark will be going 1v1 with each member of the Avengers. Each fighter will be at max health for each battle, and we're treating each match as a random encounter. Rule number 2, the roster for the Avengers has fluctuated many times over the years. I'd argue even more so than the Justice League. So to keep things simple, we're going to go with what I think is a standard roster of the team. Captain America Steve Rogers, Scarlet Witch, Black Panther, Iron Man Tony Stark, Thor Odinson, and Hulk Bruce Banner. Several characters from Marvel have been members of the Avengers several times in their tenure as heroes, so if you don't like my selection for any number of reasons, that's 100% fine, but these are the ones I've chosen. Also, please understand as well that I'm not going to list every single feat each Avenger has under their belt. This video, if anything, should be treated as a brief snapshot of each character instead of it being a giant analysis of their power sets. So no, if I don't speak on anything, it's not because I forgot about it or I'm lowballing the characters. All we really need to discuss is if they have any feats that get them over Emperor Mark. Rule number 3, we're using the standard loadouts and traditional forms for each character. Just to be upfront, this rule will be somewhat bent when talking about a certain genius billionaire playboy philanthropist, but I'll justify my reasoning in the Iron Man section. Like I said though, pretty straightforward. And just so I don't have to create a whole section for Mark again, since this will technically be the 3rd time now I've covered it on the channel, we are upscaling Emperor Mark to large planet level in terms of AP and durability, as well as giving him faster than light to multiple times faster than light speeds. The upscale is based on previous feats that occurred in the Invincible comic book, as well as due to Mark having an exceedingly high growth rate compared to every other known Viltrumite, since by the time Mark becomes Emperor, he's blatantly the strongest Viltrumite before he even turns 30, and the story of Invincible concludes 500 years into the future. Now that that's been said, let's go ahead and jump into our first match. First on the list is Captain America, and if you haven't read a Cap book, you definitely should, because Steve Rogers is just that guy. We'll be dropping some tough-ass bars every now and then, but in a fight against Invincible, this is generally just not a close match. In terms of speed, Cap does have at the very least reaction feats of dodging lasers and other fast and light projectiles, or blocking them with the shield several times in his history, so it's fair to say that he'd be able to somewhat keep up with Mark in that regard, but things pretty much go downhill for him here. Cap on several occasions has been overpowered by all manner of characters within the Marvel Universe. Cap isn't a powerhouse at all, and that really shouldn't be surprising. Steve, more times than not, is usually giving the orders to these powerhouses, while a far weaker and less experienced Mark, compared to his EOS self, was able to help his father and others in the destruction of an entire planet. With enough force, Cap can get knocked unconscious and be put in a hospital bed from being slammed through a building. If he chucks that shield at Mark and he catches it or throws it somewhere out of Cap's reach, the fight is basically over, since that's the one item that would allow for Steve to take the force of Invincible can dish out. So for the first round, Mark takes the W, putting him at a win-loss rate of 1 win and 0 losses. Next opponent on the list is the Scarlet Witch, and I'm sure some of you are probably wondering why I chose Wanda over perhaps Doctor Strange. It's real simple. Wanda joined the Avengers before Steven. And not gonna lie, when comparing her to Mark, Wanda might be his natural predator. As I mentioned several times in my Justice League video, and just what's blatantly shown in the Invincible comic book, Mark struggles greatly against characters who are hacks-based fighters. And since Wanda is a literal witch who uses chaos magic, she is the embodiment of hacks. Just like how Angstrom Levi can open portals into alternate dimensions and leave Mark stranded there with no way to return to his dimension, Wanda can do the exact same thing, but she can also take it a step further by creating her own pocket dimensions via her magic. She can effortlessly deflect lasers with little effort and can quite literally just turn Mark to stone in an instant. Mark has 0 defense against Wanda. Like seriously, there's nothing he can do here. Wanda can literally contain a black hole with her magic. That far exceeds Mark at his best. Wanda is essentially if Eve actually used her powers to the fullest extent. That's now 1 win and 1 loss for Mark. Next is the Golden Avenger himself, Iron Man, and when it comes to Tony Stark, what always makes him such a genuine threat is the ever-expanding evolution of his tech. Tony's genius has allowed him to stand shoulder to shoulder with some of the strongest people in the Marvel Universe. When it comes to his speed, even some of Tony's oldest models of armor has allowed for him to contend against the Living Laser, one of the villains of his rogues gallery, and obviously he's only upgraded his equipment in time. In more recent comics, his standard base armor has allowed for him to take hits from the members of the Avengers of 1 million BC, which included a younger version of Odin, the Starbrand Hulk, a Ghost Rider, and the Phoenix. Tony was also able to 1v1 and defeat Terrax with little to no effort, Terrax being a former herald of Galactus who, just like Silver Surfer, wields a portion of the power cosmic and has somewhat relativity to him. Again, this is just base Iron Man we're talking about, but here's where things get kind of sticky. As I mentioned earlier in the rules section, Tony kind of bends rule 3 when it comes to using standard loadouts because he quite literally on several occasions has been able to summon the vast legion of his armors to fight for him in battle. It'll be low-key disingenuous for me to not talk about this because as long as Tony has access to his Stark tech, at any point in time he can summon armors and use them to fight remotely. Tony's base armor allowing him to survive getting jumped by Avengers 1 billion BC and defeating Terrax would already put Tony unironically well above large planet level and more likely in the galaxy ranges of his AP at the very least, considering that again, Terrax is someone who is relative to the other heralds of Galactus and can brawl with Thor and Savage She-Hulk. And if Tony whips out his Mysterium armor, it's even more GG's because the armor is strong enough to where Captain Marvel or Doctor Strange can't do anything to damage it. So that leaves Mark now at a win-loss rate of 1 win and 2 losses. Let's move on to our next Avenger. Next on the list is Black Panther, and Jesus Christ, this is extremely unfair. For those of you who may not know, if we were to compare the Avengers to the Justice League, it wouldn't be a terrible take to say that Black Panther would be the closest thing that the team has to Batman. But the difference between T'Challa and Bruce is that one, T'Challa has a fatter bank account than Bruce, seeing as he owns an intergalactic empire in the comics right now, meaning he has far more resources at his disposal, and two is that his vibranium suit and weapons are far stronger than Bruce's standard bat suit, and in some ways even more advanced. To put things in perspective, T'Challa's suit allows for him to tank hits from Worldbreaker Hulk, but this isn't just any kind of Worldbreaker Hulk. Bruce is out to get revenge over the death of his son, who he was tricked into believing he was killed by a Wakandan assassin sent by T'Challa. So think how angry a father would be over the murder of their child and replace that father with Worldbreaker Hulk, and you really begin to understand how insane that is. Shuri is outfitted with the same kind of suit as T'Challa, and it allowed for her to take a blast from Gladiator, who is basically Space Superman of the Shi'ar Empire. In addition to the powerful durability of his suit, the vibranium blades T'Challa has can even injure this version of Hulk as well. T'Challa also has a built-in teleporter that he can use in battle, and he can also let loose the kinetic energy his suit endures, meaning Mark slamming T'Challa as hard as he can will literally have the force redirected to him. Finding a genius tactician like T'Challa outfitted with equipment that can more than handle the strongest blows from him makes this fight pretty difficult for Mark to win. If I were to compare T'Challa to the Invincible universe, this is like him fighting against a far smarter version of Battle Beast with far better equipment. T'Challa's vibranium technology hard counters Invincible's brute strength, making Mark's win-loss rate record now of 1 win and 3 losses. Alright y'all, I have a confession. I freaking love Thor comics. This dude is kind of the GOAT. Ever since he became the Allfather of Asgard, I've been hooked on his stories. So excuse me if I start glazing. This is unironically just going to be a giant advertisement from me to go and read Thor comics. Because I think generally people know Thor is strong, but they don't understand how strong he is. Thor was able to survive getting crushed by multiple moons, and then through manipulating Mjolnir, destroyed all of them. Mind you, this is base Thor. Base Thor. One-shotting multiple moons, and he wasn't even Allfather yet when he did this. Destroying multiple moons is in an instant is already a multi-planetary benchmark at the bare minimum. When the symbiote god pulled up to Earth, it literally no-diffed the Sentry, ripped that man in half, but Thor was able to actually do damage to him. Again, base Thor. Able to do damage to someone who defeated a bunch of Celestials. Celestials being entities who are literally multiversal beings, but they got their asses whooped by Null. Thor being able to do real damage to him is an insane feat. Again, base Thor was able to fight Starship Hulk to the point where their battle needed to be moved to a new battlefield in fear of destroying a planet in the process. And considering that Starship Hulk only needs to be at level 2 to destroy a planet, but base Thor pushed him to level 8, this is incredibly impressive. And finally, base Thor is able to hurt even Galactus. So what exactly is for Mark to do here? Absolutely nothing. He is beyond cooked. I need y'all to understand, Thor is fighting entities that destroy entire universes and elder gods that can control the literal panels of the comic book. You could wank Mark to absurd levels of strength and Thor wouldn't even need to use the Thor Force to one-shot him. The Thor Force basically turning Thor into a reality warper on top of an increase in his stats. Odin himself literally states, Thor usually holds back when he fights. That's now 1 win and 4 losses for Mark. And finally, we have Mr. Big Bean and Green himself, the Incredible Hulk. And I'm sure y'all understand just from the Thor section that this is an instant loss. Hulk showing relativity to Thor is already absurd in itself. As I mentioned earlier, destroying a planet is literally nothing to Hulk. In fact, Hulk landed on a world full of Hulks who destroy planets and condense the core of it into a giant ball for them to use for their own sports games. The Hulk possibly going on a killing spree intentionally is literally considered to be one of the greatest threats to the heroes of the Marvel Universe. Iron Man turned the corpse of a dead Celestial into a giant Hulk-busting armor, and the Hulk destroyed it while beating on Thor at the same time. Hell, Hulk has been able to fight all the Avengers at the same time by himself. This is a complete wash of a match. I don't think I even need to bring up the Immortal Hulk and what occurred between him and the one below all. Mark, no matter how strong he is, no matter how fast he is, nothing in his arsenal, no feat he has ever accomplished compares to the strongest there is in the Marvel Universe. And that about wraps things up for this video, making Mark's total win-loss rate of 1 win and 5 losses. He can only scrounge up 1 win, and it's pretty unfortunate because I think Mark suffers from just not having any tools under his belt that can help him when his strength doesn't cut anymore. As soon as Mark faces off against people stronger than him, or somebody who can get around his strength via hacks, he crumbles instantly. Honestly, it would be nice if Mark was able to develop more, or we had more information about him when he becomes Emperor, but there's no reasonable way he can compete with all the people he lost against without flat out lying about his stats. There are several heroes within the Marvel Universe that Mark is 100% capable of beating without the need to highball his canon strength, but he gets outclassed badly in all other sorts of ways. I do appreciate you all for taking the time to watch the video. I've honestly had a great time covering the heroes of the Marvel and DC Universe, so if you want me to start covering these characters more, go ahead and let me know. I hope you all have a good day and please stay safe. Peace.